Welcome back to the Pontificating Dad. Maybe I'll go with that as a title, the Pontificating Father. The other day, my wife and I were talking. She was telling me about something that happened when she was at Walmart, which sadly, because of where we live, Walmart's unavoidable in many contexts. I'm not a big fan of them, but we don't have a whole lot of options. But we were talking about the male gaze and how she thought, or somewhat hoped, that she was beyond it at her age. Now, my wife is a very pretty and beautiful woman, regardless of her age, and she has aged at a far lower rate than a lot of women do. Probably clean living and good genetics, all that stuff. Regardless, she kind of hoped or felt that she was beyond the male gaze because it's one of those things women are made aware of very early, that the older they get, the less, the predatory nature of men's behavior towards women might apply to them, that's a wild idea it's hard to fathom that women have to think this way. But this, she was at Walmart and there was a man on the aisle she was on, and she did not look at him, but she knew he was looking at her, and she could feel it, and he kept sort of, being in whatever space he was in a way as to try to get her to look at him, and she never did. And nevertheless, she knew that this person was trying to get her to make, eye contact or whatever. And I've never been one for staring at people or trying to catch their eye. Like I said, I might be mildly autistic myself, and so I don't like eye contact. It takes an extreme amount of effort to maintain eye contact, even at work with customers, people I don't know at all. It's just not who I am. I don't want to look at them real close, but women have it so much worse than that, because just a glance or a look at a man, and men think the woman wants to cultivate a relationship or marry them or whatever. It's a constant problem for women. So I can't imagine what that's like to go through life like that every day. And if you're a man, you probably can't either. And so I've even been making a more conscious effort, even though I naturally don't want to look at people, I try to make an even more conscious effort of, when I encounter women, to engage them fully if I'm actually talking to them, or at work, whatever, at church, wherever, to fully talk to them. And I don't know why the male gaze exists the way it does. Now, we could just chalk it up to patriarchy. I'm not sure. I do not know, but I do know the effect it has on women, and it's not good. So if you're a younger man who finds yourself ogling of young women, or looking at women in a way that is like, the thing I've always heard about the male gaze from men that is sort of an excuse. It's like it's just purely an excuse to be a dog. Is what? I mean, we're not allowed to appreciate beautiful women anymore. You can appreciate beautiful women on a canvas or on an urn a vase. And you can appreciate the beauty of women who are part of, if you're romantically involved with a woman, there's nothing wrong with letting her know that she's beautiful. But if you are staring at women in public, or even side-eyeing women in public, and the various things that men do, just know you're making women uncomfortable. Now, there might be some sort of argument about women and men who find each other attractive across a room, or find each other attractive during an exchange. That's different. It's not the same thing as, watching a woman as she walks away from you. That's inappropriate behavior. It's not okay to do that to women. It's not okay for anyone to do it to anybody else. If you want a relationship, if you're not simply one of these, intellectually dishonest people who is claiming you just want a relationship and companionship, but what you really want is just sex. If you genuinely want a relationship, then treating women that way is not okay. It's never going to be okay. And it can't be okay. Men know it when it happens, even when it's not them doing it, because that's one of the things that makes men jealous, right? Men get jealous pretty easily at other men looking at their woman, or checking my girl out, whatever. So it happens. The question is, do you acknowledge that you do it? And if you can acknowledge it, you can maybe do something about it. You can make a choice, and making a choice is far better than being a slave to instinct, or a slave to the way it's always been. You always have a choice. And in the case of how you think about, how you look at women, your choices matter. They have an impact. They can change the world. If you choose to do the right thing. One of the things said by people in church all the time, right, is actions speak louder than words, and lead by example, and what people see in your walk with Christ will show them more than you could ever tell them. Okay, let's apply that to the broader social and existential life of people. If you make a choice not to be that guy, and I'm not saying you're being the nice guy or you're being a performative male, if you just make conscious little choices every day, you might not ever get rewarded for it, and you might not, no one might ever say, look at him, he's a good guy. But your brain will start to change, and you will start to act and think differently. And the point of that is not for you to receive gratification. It is to increase respect and safety for women and everybody else around you. I remember being 19 and women around me in social settings, like out at night, were basically treated as like the prize to be won. And that can't be the way forward. It can't be who we are destined to be. Not if we're going to have a healthy, safe world for everybody. And we're not, broadly speaking, going to have that. But if you can make one person at a time feel that much more safe, then they perhaps can begin to trust people a little bit more. They can maybe not walk out of their house and be afraid of everybody around them. Gen Z and Gen Alpha, even more so, are the most distrustful / fearful generations in, as far as we know, in American history. They have less optimism. They have less comfort, and they're less comfortable around their fellow humans. And there's a lot of factors with that, probably from pandemic to school shootings to, in this instance specifically, the proliferation of toxic masculinity. The fact that someone's willing to get in front of a camera and, like, who is it? The Secretary of Defense is preacher. He ain't calling him what he wants to be called. He's the Secretary of Defense by act of Congress. His preacher, like, proudly proclaims that women should be in the kitchen. They shouldn't be allowed to vote. Like, it's 2026. It's been over 100 years since women were given the right they should have already had to vote. And this man could stand in front of a camera and say these things proudly. That's pretty messed up. Anyway, when you see a woman, see a person, when you consider whether or not you're attracted to her, reconsider whether that is your first thought, should be your first thought. It doesn't matter if you are lonely, and that sounds pretty harsh, because I understand loneliness, but a desire for closeness, companionship, does not give you the right to make somebody else uncomfortable. And I'm not claiming I've never done that. I probably have. I grew up in a time just not that long ago, but long ago enough that there were some pretty problematic movies and things in the 90s. So there's a lot of media that reinforced these stereotypes, and every day I hear men say things about women. Or maybe they're saying things about men and they use women as a prop in their argument or examples. And it's nasty, man. It's not doing anybody any good. 5 seconds of comedy, bad comedy, is not worth dehumanizing people. So maybe that's the first and foremost thing, which I've talked about a little bit before, which is that if you don't see a person when you see a woman or a girl, then that's where you have to start. There has to be a reckoning in your soul. Probably I need to call it there for the night. It's getting late. The girls have to get ready for bed. I'm off tomorrow, so I'll probably do a video at some point. We'll see. Reconsider what your eyes are doing. Just last point. Growing up in the church, I can personally attest to the fact that women were told, even in my presence, in classes, that they should be considerate of what they're wearing and how they're acting so that they might not tempt men. Nobody's ever told a man that. As far as I know, no one's ever told a boy or a man, you really need to be careful how you dress and things so that the women don't just jump your bones and rape you. But that is told to women, and that is the most unfair and untrue thing imaginable. Women are not responsible for what men do. Men they've never met, men they don't know, men who see them in the aisle of a Walmart. They're not responsible for your thoughts and your actions. You are. So if you're unwilling to take accountability for that and you want to pass it off on women, you need a reckoning.